2018, and this is the public participation portion of the Volusia County Council meeting today. We'll call that meeting in order. At this time, we'll hear from those of you who have something on your mind. You'll have 3 minutes to state that, and we will not answer any questions, but we will attempt to direct you to the people who can do that after you have spoken. We have one person who's filled out a card. If you will come and state your name and address for the record. Shannon Stafford? Maybe Sharon. Sharon Stafford.
Good morning, all. Good morning. My name is Sharon Stafford, 461 Clark Street, Orange City, Florida. And I do apologize for being here on such a late notice, but I wasn't sure of the process until recently. What I'm here for is for sponsorship for the African American Heritage Festival in the city of Orange City. It is due to take place this weekend, February the 23rd and 24th. I have some cards that I want to pass out to everyone so that make sure that you know what we're talking about. Is it okay with you?
If you give those to the clerk, and I think that we are aware of this event this weekend. I know some have planned to attend, but thank you for taking your time.
Okay. And I'm also requesting some sponsorships because this is our nonprofit organization, and it takes funds for us to put this together, and we're looking for some sponsorship if possible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Hearing that there are no more, we will adjourn this portion of the meeting and see you back here at 10 o'clock. Good morning. We will be starting the meeting in 5 minutes. It's 9:55, and we will start the meeting at 10 o'clock. Just give you a little heads up warning. Thank you. One minute. 1 minute.
I forgot.
Good morning. It is 10 o'clock, February 20th, 2018. Welcome to the Volusia County Council meeting today. And we'll call the meeting to order at this time. And we will have the roll call. No, we won't. We'll do the invocation first.
We don't need to?
I was on. I'm trying to move this meeting right along, aren't I?
I'm gonna do G. I'm not doing it.
Okay, you were just checking to make sure I knew what we're going to do. I passed it.
No.
Yeah, we have it. Okay. Pastor Larry Edwards of the St. John Missionary Baptist Church in Daytona Beach is going to offer our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask council if you would please stand with me.
Let us bow our heads. Almighty Creator, we bow this morning in humble submission, asking your divine blessings on these county leaders and all that are present in this assembly. I pray for unity in leadership, guidance in decision-making, and most of all, justice for all. Master, it is my request that you provide protection of safety for each of these and their family members as each fulfills his or her assigned duties. Keep each with the heart to do what is just, show loving mercy, and work humbly according to your guidance. And as we close, we pray for the victims in South Florida, that you would be with them at this hour. In your name we pray. Amen. United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say I had the honor to be at Pastor Edwards' church to do a proclamation for his anniversary. So, what was it, 16 years? 16 years, so thank you very much.
And we may let you do the invocation someday. But you don't get a county pin. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Patterson?
Here.
Ms. Post?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler? Ms. Cusack? Ms. Denny's?
Here.
Dr. Lowry?
Here.
And Mr. Kelly?
Here. At this time, we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to comment or make a comment on any of the consent agenda items? Mr. Deneen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're going to comment on G, J, and K.
Is there anyone on the council who wishes a comment or any item pulled? Hearing none, we will.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Second, Patterson. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion stands unanimous. Thank you. And Mr. Deneen, item G.
Yes. Mr. Weinberg?
Good morning, folks.
Morning.
I'm Mark Weinberg. I'm the court administrator for the 7th Judicial Circuit, and I've been asked to tell you a little bit about misdemeanor probation services. I'll take just a minute of your time. By way of background, the provision of misdemeanor probation services by private entities is covered by Section 948.15 of the Florida statutes. Judicial Correction Services, or JCS, has provided this service in Volusia County since 2006. Its current contract was signed in 2015 and is good for 3 years. It has 2 one-year renewal options, and the item before you today is the first such renewal. JCS operates 4 offices which are located in various parts of the county. In 2017, the judges of Volusia County Court placed roughly 3,000 individuals under their supervision, with approximately 1,300 being supervised at any given time. No county dollars are expended in support of these services. Rather, the contractor is entirely dependent on cost of supervision fees paid by the probationers themselves. That rate is set by the court and is currently $45 per month. By statute, except in extraordinary cases, a person may not be on probation for a term in excess of 6 months. By contract, JCS must supervise all those sent to them by the court, regardless of their ability or inability to pay. Some examples of probationary conditions which JCS is asked to oversee include performing community service hours, submitting to periodic drug tests, attending certain classes or programs, and satisfying other monetary obligations. And to conclude, my office audits the JCS contract annually to ensure contractual compliance. I'll do my best to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much.
Good? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
And then item J, Mr. Deneen.
Clay?
Good morning. Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. The item before you is an extension of an existing contract we have with 3 firms for continuing services for hydrogeological and environmental services. We wanted to just give you a quick overview of what those services are. Whenever the county goes in and needs assessment of groundwater or some of the sampling that's associated if we take over a piece of property that has tanks on it, these are folks that come in and are able to provide those services to us and handle all of the permitting. The reason why this is a continuing service contract is that for us to hire these people on as permanent staff would be costly, and also we would not have a consistent need for them. This is on an on-needed basis, so it's a way for us to get expertise at an affordable price in a much more efficient way. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you. I think that's just good management practice. Thank you. Item K.
Clay, you can do that one also.
Once again, Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. This is a similar type of situation. We have 3 firms that are providing us with protected species and environmental assessment. This is, for lack of a better term, the bugs and bunnies, where we go out and determine whether or not a site has protected species and needs additional permitting or some other way of making sure that the site is being able to be utilized and still be able to protect those species.
That's on Z, right?
What we have is a situation where we do have some staff members that are already certified in regards to like gopher tortoises and similar type. This is a larger contract. This is for large tracts of property, such as where we're looking at the airport, that southern property, where we would need to have someone come out and do a larger scale assessment. Again, all of these are on an as-needed basis, except for the one contract is with EAI. They are basically providing the assistance to us on a continuing basis with regards to implementation of the incidental take permit for the portion of the beach that basically spans both sides of the inlet. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Also, the Sheriff Chitwood's here. He would like to make a comment on Z.
On which item?
Z.
Z. Make sure your cell phone is turned off.
I
But-
don't have any money to buy donuts if it does go off. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of council. Just very quickly, our crime victims grant. This is our 18th year that we have applied and received this grant. We have 5 volunteer folks who volunteered approximately $30,000 worth of service, which goes toward our in-kind match. And I would like to introduce our 2 victim advocates today, Megan and Joanne, if you guys would stand up. Their caseload is about 2,000 victims a year that they interact with, and they're not only on behalf of the sheriff's office, they're on behalf of our whole circuit. Cities call in, these folks are on call. They do an amazing, amazing job for us. And I just wanted to make sure that they get recognized for the important work that they do, because nobody knows who they are. So God forbid at 2 a.m. they're getting a phone call, hey, we need you to come out to this crime scene.
Well, the people that they work with certainly know who they are.
That is
Thank
absolutely
you for
true.
that service. I know how important it is, so.
So, and we saw firsthand in Broward County how important it is.
Exactly. Thank you.
Have a good day.
I was just going to make a comment on that. This is extremely important, and I was a victim advocate at Port Orange for several years, and it was a lot of work, and, but it was so well worth it. And I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We'll move to item number 2. This is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing portion, and we have a staff report from, looks like it could be.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Britton will start, and Jamie Seaman will also participate, and they will give you an overview.
Mr. Brenton.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of council. I'm Jerry Brenton, the county engineer. This is a request for abandonment of a beach approach, and I just wanted to note that as we do on all our requests for abandonments, we notify adjacent property owners. We go roughly 1,000 feet to the north, 1,000 feet to the south, and go all the way to the river, which is almost 3,000 feet. So all of those get notices. The two adjacent property owners, to the north is the Hilton Garden Inn, and to the south, the La Playa Resort and Suites. The La Playa Resort is in the process of renovations due to the hurricanes, and in order to get permits and all, they have to have adequate parking. This beach approach was platted in 1959, and this was a time when the city of Daytona Beach controlled the beach approaches, and in '85 the city of Daytona Beach leased the 50-foot right-of-way, which is shown in the exhibit. Is on the north end is the 5-foot sidewalk, and so there's another 45 feet to the south. It stops before you get to the 20-foot parking spots that are adjacent to the La Playa, which are private. And that lease was in '85. Since that time, of course, the county now has control of the beaches and the approaches. So the petitioners have petitioned county council to vacate what they are presently leasing. And so this is jurisdiction of the county. So what is being proposed here is that of the 50-foot platted right-of-way, 45 feet of it be released, essentially abandoned, to the La Playa Resort, retaining the 5 feet that you see in the exhibit to the north for the sidewalk. Today, there is no access to the beach. Here shows an example of, it's probably close to 12-foot difference in elevation. So that is probably one of the reasons why it's never been opened. You have such a grade difference that you just wouldn't be able to make that a drivable beach approach. And because you've got 20 feet on the La Playa property that is theirs. You can't just cut down 12 feet and go 200 and some feet to make it ADA and drivable compliant. So it just isn't feasible, and wouldn't even be legal to do that. So the conditions of, if the council were to accept this, is that La Playa would, within 3 years, would build a walkway down to the beach, from that sidewalk down to the sand. So they would have 3 years to do that on their nickel. The estimate is about $100,000. So that would provide, first time ever, a public pedestrian access to the beach. The other condition within the 3 years also would be that La Playa would pay the county $300,000 toward providing parking at some, at this time, undesignated location. So essentially being able to replace the parking. And as I said, this has never been open to the public. The parking spots have never been open to the public. And let me see if I've missed anything. And staff is supporting this. And if,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Mr.
We have,
Chair-
we'll
Mr. Chair,
move to the,
if I may.
Jamie.
Yes, thank you. I think one of the issues that has risen that Mr. Britton didn't hammer home is that the resolution would take effect upon council approving it if you so did. However, the vacation does not take effect until the walkover is constructed, inspected, and accepted for maintenance by the county, and the funds are paid for the $300,000 to construct additional off-beach parking. So it's not as if you would vacate it today, and then if they don't keep their promise and don't meet the conditions, that we will have lost the beach approach. It does not occur until those conditions are met, and this is the same process that the council followed for Van Avenue, Lenox, Ocean Dunes, Esther Street, which we did for the city of New Smyrna Beach at their request, and the Vermont Goodall approaches, which are where the Land Shark and the Mexican restaurant just went in north of Sunsplash Park.
okay. Thank you. We'll move to the public participation part, and we have 4 people who would like to speak. Alex Ford, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council members, Alex Ford, 145 East Rich Avenue, DeLand. Is there a clicker I need? Or? Thank you. Okay. And I'll make this really quick. This is the fourth this is the fifth of 5 redevelopment projects this family has done in the Daytona Beach area. So I just wanted to run through. This one is the old La Playa Resort. The first 3 are already done. That was Inn on the Beach, which was rebranded to a Holiday Inn Resort. The Ocean Sands Hotel, which was rebranded to a Hampton, and the Acapulco, which is now Delta by Marriott. As y'all know, the Old Desert Inn is soon to be opened as a Hard Rock, and I can give you an update on that if you'd like. So just running through real quick, before and after the Holiday Inn, before and after the Hampton, the Delta by Marriott. And excuse that picture, I took that picture of the Hard Rock, wasn't anticipating to use it today, but thought I might throw it in there. So we have a good community development partner who's come in and done some really good things in this community, and we're asking for some assistance with this 5th project. Let me just go back on the Hard Rock. As y'all recall,
If you would limit your comments to the issue, Counselor.
be glad to.
Thank you.
Be glad to. Okay. So as Jerry Brenton mentioned, in 1959 the subdivision was platted. It included a 50-foot beach approach just north of the 2500 North Atlantic property, which is the La Playa. That was leased to the then owner of the property. That whole 50 feet was leased to the then owner property in 1985 by Daytona Beach, which they used it for parking ever since. And that lease runs out in July of 2025. So rather than waiting until the last minute, we wanted to try to get something worked out now. The basis for the request is the client's putting in a substantial renovation. He's going to estimate about $20 million for this between purchasing the property and renovating it. And obviously, parking is the key to success. If this property does not continue to be used for parking, there's kind of a domino effect. Other development standards are implicated, and that's going to result in room loss. So we'd really like to ensure the success of this project by continuing to have these spaces available. We think it's a win-win. Right now, you have a beach approach it's just on paper, what we call paper plat, platted roads. It's not there. There's no access to the public, and I'm not sure if there ever would be if it were not for the opportunity we have here. As Mr. Brenton said, you have some development standards that would be in place that may just make it impossible to do this unless the county were to do what you're, through this, able to get my client to do through his funds. So it also enhances the chances of success for a good community development partner. So that's the picture you've already seen from the staff report. I wanted to address, I know some of y'all received emails from folks who don't think this is such a good idea, saying we're looking at a potential for broken promises. And as Jamie mentioned in your resolution that's being proposed, it says if we don't do these things within 3 years, it's void ab initio. That's lawyer talk for meaning from the very start. It's as though it never happened. So if the promises aren't fulfilled, the approach is not vacated. So. Your county code specifically contemplates this type of action. It provides that we have to provide equal or superior access within 1,000 feet. Here we're right on top of the same platted approach. We're narrowing it, but we're actually giving access, whereas currently there is no physical access. So clearly that standard, it is superior access to what's there now. It can't be vacated until it's constructed. Obviously, what I just discussed, that will meet that detail. And here we've done one better, or your staff has gotten one better. They've done a good job negotiating. You're going to, in addition to meeting the county standard, you're also going to be getting $300,000 that will be used for off-beach parking. So, we're ensuring success of a redevelopment project, which will increase the tax base. We're enhancing the county's reputation as a good economic development partner. We're enhancing both the county and the city's tax base, and we're making the beach more accessible in two ways. Currently, where the current location is, and with the new parking. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If not, I'll be glad to sit down.
Any questions from the two that have their speakers? I think you're for later. Is that correct? Did you have a question of Alex? No. Okay. Thank you, Alex. Ken Strickland.
Ken Strickland, 1208 North Halifax, Daytona Beach. You know, I think this is the third time in 3 years I've been here talking to you guys about a beach-related subject. We continue to provide incentives to developers with not providing very much for the residents, taxpayers. In return, $300,000 today sounds like a lot of money. Put that out over perpetuity into the future, it's nothing. No consideration of the taxpayers' desires on vacating this has been considered, apparently. The $20 million investment and the vacating of this really does not provide enough in return to the taxpayers other than beach access, which is just a word, which means you can walk there carrying all your stuff, your grandkids and everything, from probably across the street somewhere, which is 4 lanes of very dangerous traffic in that area. Please consider the taxpayers for a change with your decision today, and please vote no to vacating this approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Mike Dennis.
Good morning, Mike Dennis, 625 Lenox Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. This is the, I guess my second time in front of this body about a beach approach. The first time was the Lenox Avenue approach, which was the first Hard Rock, if you remember. And, you know, I'm glad I got quoted, my email got quoted about the broken promise, because that's what the first Hard Rock was, a broken promise. In that Lennox hearing, Jamie Siemens.
Mike, if you would limit your comments to the issue, which is
Yeah.
the vacation of this property.
Okay. In a prior hearing, the Jamie Siemens mentioned that the parking replacement was a state statute, not a county. So if this approach is vacated, then the state statute cuts in, and they have to provide parking someplace, period. And it's not a county issue. Is it going to cost $300,000 or is it going to cost $500,000? We don't know. So again, broken promises can carry consequences, and I'd like to see you guys vote no on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. David Lee Davis.
Good morning, Council. Mr. Chairman, my name is David Lee Davis. I reside at 939 Sandalberry Court in Port Orange, Florida. I come here today in opposition to the request to make this provision for the developers for the La Playa. I'm a lifetime resident of Daytona Beach, grew up there. It's my hometown. I remember going to La Playa. I think it was Duke Gaines when he appeared up there many, many, many years ago. I love the idea that the La Playa is going to be restored. I love the idea that any type of development on that beachside comes to our communities. We need development. We do. And we are behind development. When I say we, I'm talking about organizations that I may belong to. And myself personally, I support all the development that goes on there. What I do not support is when that which is held in public trust is given away. We heard cited the Lennox Avenue area, the Goodall, and some other places where business profited, but what did the public profit from? The public got development. We look at the La Playa in the same situation. What I ask this council to do is to use restraint and to postpone any action on this matter until a further date. This organization that is coming to you for the La Playa has other ventures out there that have come under questionable activities in the past few weeks and in the past few months. I think we should give them an opportunity to finish what they've started, an opportunity to prove to the people of Volusia County that they're going to fulfill their obligations to us and to keep their promises to us. You know, when a student comes to school every day without their homework and says the dog ate it, how many times does a teacher listen to that before they do something about it? And when the judge has a defendant come before them who promises not to do it again, how many times before they sentence that defendant? And when I think about a bank and business, does a bank loan more money to an organization that has defaulted or fallen behind in its obligations? No, it waits. The La Playa is a great project. We have money in this county. We've shown that we're able to give 20 million here and 40 million there and 10 million, 2 million, whatever. You did great jobs in bringing in the fulfillment center for a great chain in grocery stores. You did a great job in bringing in the development for the retail outlets. They got money. They got different conditions. They didn't get public land. And once that public land's gone, it's gone for good. And the most priceless piece of land we have in Volusia County is our beachside land. I ask you to postpone this. What's another few weeks? Let them meet their other obligations first and bring it back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to conclude. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, we will close the public participation portion and council discussion. Ms. Post, you were up there, and now you've disappeared. And Ms. Wheeler, you were up next, and you've disappeared.
Didn't want to disappear.
Yeah.
I didn't want to disappear either.
Ms. Post?
I didn't want to disappear either. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how that happened.
I'm going to go back. Ms. Post, recognize you for comments, questions.
Okay. Jamie, something I'd like to clarify, and if you could put up the picture of, I think it had December 2017 at the bottom right of the.
Like it was December 27th, I believe was the date.
That picture, yes. So I just want to clarify that this piece of property, since before 1985, correct, has never been used for beach access. It's been walled, correct? I mean, you can climb over the 15-foot wall or the 12-foot wall, but
We have tried to ascertain exactly when the wall was built. We can see development in the area in the early 80s, and we think that's about the time that those walls were put in. Prior to that, there was some cleared areas, so we don't know whether or not the public actually came down the beach between 1959, when it was platted, and then the early 80s, when the wall apparently went up based on the aerials we've been able to view. But at least from the early 1980s, that wall has been there.
okay, so it has not been beach access since the mid-'80s. Okay.
I would say the early 80s, yes, ma'am.
And then
That's
the second thing I wanted to clarify as well, and perhaps, Jerry, you could speak to this again if you need to, but that this tiny plot of land is not suitable to open up for beach driving according to the size and regulations for today, correct?
Mr. Brenton?
Yes, that is correct. As you can see in the photograph, it's 12 plus feet difference. And in order to put in a drive and also to where it would be ADA accessible, it's about a 20 to 1. That takes you back up. The depth of this platted right-of-way is 300 feet back to the street. From the wall to the street is about 300. It would take over 200 feet just to get the grade accessible. So other beach ramps, they're down closer to the grade of the sand, and it's not a big issue. But we do have some that there's separation, and this is one of them. And that's probably why the wall was put in, because it was probably just a large mound going down to the beach before the 80s.
Okay, so I'm looking at this as it's county-owned property, but basically a useless piece of property that we currently own, a tiny plot that is useless to us for beach access. And setting aside who or how this is being done, I think the bottom line factor for me is several things have been brought up about not providing for the residents, but if this action will take this piece of property that currently does not have beach access and actually give beach access to the residents in that area in terms of not the ramp, the walkover, then I see that as an actual benefit to the residents of the area in giving them that walkover in an area where we would not be putting a walkover. So,
Ms. Wheeler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look at it a little bit differently. The 5 feet that would be remaining, I don't think is an adequate exchange for what we're giving up, and that's my opinion. That's my personal opinion. I understand that they need that property, but you're asking the people to give up another section of their beach, and I understand promises not being broken, but I will clarify that we just saw 3 hotels that he has remodeled, and they're gorgeous and what also. I have confidence that he will complete and it will be gorgeous. But I do have a problem with just a 5-foot walkway. I don't like the tunnel walkways in the shores. I hate them. I'd rather not even see them. However, I think at that place, I know there's never been anything there, but that doesn't make it right. I would personally like to see something there more substantial than just a 5-foot walkway. If there were a platform at the top that people could sit at a bench, a place to put their bikes, make it something that's of value to the community. It's theirs, it was theirs, it's ours, but it was theirs, and I feel strongly about that. I would like to see that proposal, if that's an choice, I would like to see it before this is confirmed. I'm in total agreement with what needs to be done. However, that, and the 300,000, unless I see another parking area completed, it really means nothing. And I think the beach people want to see parking there. I mean, they want to see parking and not just a $300 check. That doesn't mean anything to them. So if we're going to give up 500 feet or whatever, and,
I think
or
it's 50.
450.
I think it's 50.
50, I'm saying, 50 feet, we're going to give up 45 and we get 5. I really would like to see something more, if that's a possibility, if you understand, for a walkover for that community.
Thank you. Let's be reminded, nothing can be done until 2025 based upon the current conditions. So
I understand that.
So having said that, it's not, they're under lease with Daytona Beach through 2025, July of 2025. So your thoughts are, I'm hearing them.
Yeah.
But we would have to take a whole nother different approach to this to do what you're asking to be done. And I'll go ahead and but because I guess I look at it differently as well. I look at it, there's no access. I've received calls and comments, more personal comments from individuals that live around there that would like to have a walkover. Most of our walkovers are not 12 or 14 feet. Most of the walkovers are smaller and limited. And currently, there's no parking. If you were to try to make it a beach access ramp,
I'm
you'd
not
have no
talking
parking.
about a ramp.
Right, okay.
I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about restrooms or anything else. I just,
Okay.
my personal thing is I don't like a 5-foot little hallway. And that's just, that's
Well,
my comments.
I don't think that, anyway, Ms. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're confusing two things, a walkover and beach access ramps. And I think we're crossing thoughts and terminology here. So how many beach access ramps did we just authorize to reopen in Daytona in this area? The council how many did we just reauthorize in this area?
6 more.
So council is not closing access, we're creating access, and with access here, I'm talking about access ramps, not walkovers. We've all committed, it was unanimous, for access and the access ramps.
Ms. Denny's, we've also are in negotiations to talk to New Smyrna Beach about building a whole new ramp, but we've never had one, which is 16th Street.
Exactly, and that's another whole agenda item. But that's exactly where this council is, and we're supporting it, and we're funding that. So, as a practical matter, first of all, we're not giving up the beach. That's got nothing to do with it. So that comment that we're giving up beach, we're not giving up any beach. But for a practical matter, to open up access and to add parking spaces is exactly what this council has decided from the beginning in our goals and why we had that workshop on where we wanted to open up walkovers and access ramps. So I'm going to support this for that reason, because it's like where the sidewalk ends. What happens where the sidewalk ends right now? You jump into a pit. Where the sidewalk ends, nothing. Where the sidewalk ends, no access. But should we agree to go forward with this, we have created a walkover access. We've not given up the beach, and we are still committed to opening up all the access ramps for vehicles and our citizens on the beach. So based on all those things that this council has supported as a goal and funded as a goal, I am going to support this going forward. That's my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly can understand if there are some concerns if we were doing something to alleviate, if you will, or decrease access to the beach. And I think we are saying, and we have been saying, is that we want to make sure that we had access to the beach. And so I don't see this as something in a negative way. I see this as a positive way that we will be doing what we committed to the citizens of Volusia County that we would do. I support this. I support it because I think it's what we have said that we wanted to do. And so, because we may be splitting hairs as to how we get there, I think that's one thing, but to say that we're not trying to make sure that we're good stewards of access to this beach and our walkovers and ramps, I think we're doing that, and we're doing everything possible to make that happen, Mr. Chair. I support the recommendation.
I'm going to go to Mr. Patterson, since he hasn't had a chance to speak.
Gonna have to jump over hoops here to get to my microphone, get it on. You know, I've seen the work that this family has done on those other 3 properties. I've been really impressed by what they've done and what they're attempting to do. You know, I keep hearing this thing about broken promises, and I just don't believe that that has happened. And I think this is a real opportunity for us. So, Mr. Chair, I move the resolution of the vacation of a portion of the plat of Ortona Park, Section 3, Map Book 23, page 232, and abandonment of the Bel Air Plaza Beach Approach, Daytona Beach area. Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Ms. Cusack. Any further discussion, Ms. Wheeler?
Yeah, again, I am in favor of that. I would just like to see the 5-foot a little bit more. I understand that we don't have anything now. That's the only request that I had. Make it a little bit better, and I would really ask for that. I know it's an access. I absolutely support that, and but if we could just have something better.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the motion has been seconded. As discussion is over, is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I know Joanne Magley is scheduled up next, but I have Mr. and Mrs. Taylor are here. I have to catch a plane. Could we move item 6 up ahead of item number 3?
Any objection to moving item 6? We'll move item 6 to this point since there's a need for transportation. So we'll move to item 6. And this is a public hearing. And we'll get the staff report from Mr. Irvin.
Good morning, Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. Before you today is a request to rezone property on Talmadge Drive. It's approximately 100 feet west of the intersection with Kepler Road. Subject property is requesting going from R4A to A3A. The A means it is within our airport overlay. This is in essence a downzoning. It reduces the maximum development that could occur on the property. The property owner has indicated that they would like to utilize it for citrus use, in other words, growing citrus trees. That would be consistent with the proposed zoning. Staff has reviewed it, presented it to the PLDRC. There was no comments at the PLDRC. The PLDRC unanimously recommended approval at its January meeting. It's before you today. I do need to clarify that on page 06-16, there's a table that there's a typo that shows 4,098 trips, when in reality it should be 4,009. This was brought out at the PLDRC, and we wanted to make sure the record was correct. Or, excuse me, 409, excuse me, thank you. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, and also my staff, who obviously knows a lot more than I do, are right behind me.
I have no one wishing to speak from the public. We'll close the public participation, public hearing. Council.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of resolution case Z-18-009 rezoning from R4A zoning classification to A-3A zoning classification of plus or minus 43.03 acres located on the west side of Lake Talmadge Drive, approximately 100 feet west of the intersection with Kepler Road. Anything that promotes agriculture is something I want to see.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded by Lowry. Any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimous. And we will move now to item 3. No agenda. See attached list.
Good morning. Joanne Magley, Community Information Director. And we have a couple of events at the Ocean Center that we're going to start off with. The Daytona Beach Classic Gymnastic Competition is Saturday, February 24th from noon to 10 p.m. It's open to spectators and tickets can be purchased right at the door. And then the largest quilting membership organization, it's called American Quilters Society. They're holding their annual Quilt Week event at the Ocean Center from February 28th to March 3rd. This is an industry event and includes workshops and contests, but it's also open to the public where some amazing quilts are actually on display. And for tickets, people can go online to AmericanQuilter.com. Spring break for Volusia County students is just a few weeks away, and if parents or grandparents need a safe and fun place for the kids, our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Division is offering spring break camps. That is from March 1st to 3rd, and again, March 12th through 16th. The fee is $65, and people can call 386-736-5953 to sign up. The county's Solid Waste Division is holding a free collection event for household hazardous wastes, and that's March 2nd and 3rd. And this is where residents can drop off old paint, solvents, batteries, pool chemicals, all sorts of things, and fluorescent light lamps as well. This is going to be at 2 locations, Friday, March 2nd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Ormond Beach Public Works Facility, and then Saturday, March 3rd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at DeBerry City Hall. And we want to also remind residents that any time of year they can also bring their household hazardous waste to the Tomoka landfill in Port Orange or the West Volusia Transfer Station in DeLand. And then finally, one more event that's not on your list, but we got the information just recently. TSA is holding a pre-check enrollment event from 8 o'clock a.m. to noon and 1 to 5, March 19th through the 23rd at Daytona Beach International Airport. And this is where you can enroll in TSA pre-check to get through security more quickly. You first have to go online and fill out a little bit of information, and then when you come to the event, you can, or when you come on site, you can pay $85 application fee and then be certified for TSA pre-check. So all that information is on the county's website and on the airport website. Any questions?
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 4. But this is a public hearing.
Good morning. Clay Irvin, Director of Growth Resource Management. Before you is an application for Mr. and Mrs. Hillman for a comprehensive plan amendment, specifically to the future land use map. This is changing the land use designation for 16.6 acres of a total 17.5 acre tract. It's changing it from forestry resource and rural to, changing it from forestry research to rural. The intent of what's going on here is that the Hillmans have 6 separate parcels that they're trying to work through to try and make them compliant with both our land use and our zoning. Their goal is to try and pull these all together, change the land use, change the zoning, and be able to divide them into 2 viable pieces of land. That way they would be able to utilize them for future development, specifically for single-family types of uses. They've come in and met with our staff, and this is the first step. This is changing the future land use so that way they can get the density and type of zoning that they need to follow through with their intended plans. In front of you is the aerial that was on 420, and this is the proposed land use that's shown on page 422. What we hope to do is first and foremost approve this land use amendment for the 16.6 acres. Item 5 is the rezoning for the entire 17.5 acre tract. So what you will see is we will be able to go through, change the land use and change the zoning so that way we can take these different parcels and they will be able to recombine them and utilize them for 2 separate parcels that could be developed. This went forward to the PLDRC in January. There was no public comment. There was no objections, and the PLDRC unanimously recommended approval. and that is consistent with staff's recommendation in front of you today. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I have no one wishing to speak. We'll close the public hearing portion. And council, what's your action?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Ms.
move
Dennis.
approval of ordinance 2018-06, large-scale comprehensive plan amendment for the forestry resource designation to the rural R designation of 16.6 acres located at 1914 Hillman Farms Road, Delian Springs, case CPA-18-002.
Second.
Second by Patterson. Any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimous, and we will move to item 5.
Once again, Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. This is the companion amendment to our zoning ordinance for the subject property we just discussed. What this will do will give them the ability to come forward and use the property as they've requested. Staff has reviewed it. They recommended approval. The PLDRC filed staff's recommendation and unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning back in their January meeting. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Mr. Chair, move approval.
This is a public hearing. I have no one wishing to speak. We'll close the public hearing portion. Ms. Denny's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move approval of rezoning from A1 to FR zoning class to A2 zoning class of 17.5 acres located at 1914 Hillman Farms Road, Delian Springs, case Z-18-011.
Second.
Second by Lowry. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous, and we will move to item number 7, which has been withdrawn, and so we'll go to item number 8. Appointment of the Volusia County Educational Facilities Authority. Anyone, I think, can make the nomination.
Everybody speak at once.
Ms. Wheeler.
If I'm looking correctly, there's only one applicant,
That's correct. Mr. Huth.
Okay.
Mr. Huth.
So I will nominate Frank Huth Jr.
Motion's made and seconded for Mr. Huth to serve on the Volusia County Educational Facilities Authority. Any objection to that motion?
No.
Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimous.
That was her.
And we'll move to item number 9.
He had the appointment before. That's why I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Wheeler.
Yes, I would like to nominate Robert Howe.
Robert Howell has been nominated.
Ronald.
Pardon? Ronald.
Ronald Howe.
Okay, Ronald Howell has been nominated to serve on the Historic Preservation Board. Is there, I keep remembering whether we have, I keep forgetting to remember, we need a second on this or not?
No, no second.
I didn't think we did, but I just wanted to make sure. Any objection to the nomination of Ronald Howell? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimously. And we will move to item 10, which there is no item 10, which is public participation. We have no one wishing to speak. It was not here on my desk before I called it. So I'm not going to let him speak. And I have no cookies for you either. Ken Strickland. Well, once I've fed you with all my good cookies, I don't have to give them to you till a few years from now. Come on, Ken. I'm just teasing with you.
I know you are. Sometimes you tease good, and sometimes you're like me. You don't tease good at all.
That was a good tease.
All right, we're doing good here. I have some things to hand out that she's going to hand out to you. Please don't start me yet. Some pictures like this. If you take a look at them.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ken Strickland, 1208 North Halifax, Daytona Beach. Those are pictures of the Hard Rock. They show a failed attempt to rehab that building. Those are supports that are supporting the weight of the building and should have been done first, not last. The building looks great from the outside. The height's good. Everything looks great, but that's not safe in my opinion. I do not think that in the name of safety, that in 8 days that these people can make that building safe by repairing those supports to that whole building. The deadline to open and remove cars from that 110 feet behind the Hard Rock is not going to be met. Please uphold the agreement on the meeting of the deadline on behalf of the taxpaying residents of Volusia County based on the failure to meet the requirements of the agreement by the developer, Abbas, and the hospitality group that he represents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. There's no others. We'll close that portion of the public participation. Mr. Manager.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Only one comment, and that is just to remind everyone at the next meeting, we will be meeting in the afternoon in the EOC with the Shores on the issue of the parking lots in the city of the Shores.
That's after the regular council meeting.
After the regular council meeting. We'll be done in time to finish the meeting, hopefully get lunch, and then go over there and be there at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Eckert.
Nothing, sir.
County Council, and we'll start with Mr. Patterson.
I don't have much to, other than Sunrail meetings coming up in March. I'm going to ask the council that if I can go ahead and send out, we have a letter that's going up to the Assistant Secretary requesting more information that this is something that Mr. Eckert, Mr. Booker, and I put together here. But I think we need to just formally ask them to put the 2 amendments on the agenda that we need to have. There's a third amendment which has to do, which from what I understand, DOT will have to agree to. But if they don't put it on the agenda, then I think we should look at other options in the future to try to resolve this issue that we have with regarding Sunrail. That's all I really have.
Thank you, and I think you probably should have been a doctor because you have so much patience dealing with this. I could never have dealt with that issue in the manner that you have. Knowing you, I don't know how you restrained yourself from doing that, but anyway, I think it's...
I'm the oldest of 6 kids, so
well, thank you.
I had to be the peacemaker.
Ms. Post.
In regards to the Hard Rock photos that we just received, I have a question for you.
We don't address comments.
Okay, I have a question for staff then. I just wanted to clarify, I know that we have all received an email with the pictures, and I wanted to ensure that this was, if we're talking about safety, that issue was passed on to the city of Daytona, who has jurisdiction over that?
Correct. I specifically made sure that went to both the manager and to their inspection people, talked to them and made sure that they received it. It is their responsibility, both the people that are building the hotel, but it's clearly the city's responsibility for any code issues at all. And so they said they felt comfortable with what was being done with the construction and that they would take it under advisement.
Okay. And I understand it's not our responsibility, but we haven't received any official response other than that they're looking into it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure if that is a safety concern that is looked into. I wanted to bring up that the Domestic Abuse Council had their annual luncheon the other day, and it was a wonderful event. There were lots of people from the community there. But the reason for the event was to highlight that the Domestic Abuse Council's name changed at the end of last year to the Beacon Center. And the reason that it changed was to ensure that the public and that victims, I know we talked about, we had the victims advocates here from the sheriff's office earlier, so I think this was pretty relevant, that victims understand as well as the public understands all of the things that the Domestic Abuse Council actually does for for our citizens, that it's not just emergency shelter. They do provide a lot of long-standing programs, so congratulations to them and their new branding as the Beacon Center. I'd also like to say this has been a very rough week for law enforcement. This month, 26 years ago, I started my career in law enforcement in road patrol with Brevard County Sheriff's Office. And I'm sure you all heard that Brevard County Sheriff's Office had their field training officer, Kevin Stanton, that was killed in the line of duty earlier this week. So I'd like to send my condolences to them and my family there. I'd also like to say that if you could also keep in your prayers, many of you know Rob Wallace, who worked with the Volusia County Sheriff's Office for many years and also with beach safety. He has had I'll say a heart incident recently and is currently in an induced coma in the hospital. So they are actually working right at this very minute, if you could send out prayers this minute, to bring him out of that induced coma. So we'll see what happens later today, but certainly prayers to him and his family and to the law enforcement community. The last thing I had was the Constitutional Revision Committee just had their meeting in Orlando for the public, or not Orlando, Melbourne for the public, and I was happy to see that there was a fairly reasonable turnout from some citizens in Volusia County, so I was proud to see that we did have some representation there. I know that our sheriff was there, our clerk of court, Laura Roth, was there, our Judy Grimm with Volusia County was there as well, speaking on behalf of water quality for the county. So very happy to see that, and very happy to see that citizens were involved in the revision of the Florida Constitution, which only happens every 20 years, and we are currently going through that. So good to see. And that's all I have for comments.
Thank you. Ms. Wheeler.
Gosh, thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things I wanted to mention was a veteran program that I have sent to staff, and it is called the Purple Heart County. And every county to become a Purple Heart County and participate in the Combat Wounded Veteran Recognition Program. And a Purple Heart County is a county that recognizes those in their community who gave their lives or were wounded in combat defending our American freedom. There are no formal requirements and no cost to receive this designation, but the process involves the City Council or County Commissioners, including issuing a proclamation explaining the county's intent. I have talked somewhat with Donna Butler, and there's really nothing else involved in this, correct? And it would be a great, if you would like to speak on that a little bit, I would like to see our county do the proclamation. And they do have a ceremony. Once the proclamation is finalized, the county will host a ceremony recognizing their county's Purple Heart recipients. The military order traditionally provides the county with a plaque commemorating the occasion, a Purple Heart flag, and pins for everyone attending.
There's not much more than that.
Yeah.
They just have to provide a DD-214 to our Veterans Office. We can verify that they received the Purple Heart, and then they would come in front of a council to determine who's going to come forward and receive the recognition.
So if the rest of the council agrees, I would like to see a proclamation for that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad received the Purple Heart and was also a POW, so he
Mine
got
did also.
double on that.
Okay, then I have another thing. Recently in the newspaper, HUM had a proposal for the First Step shelter as a holding pattern until First Step is ready. And their proposal was that, this month, there will be like 100 beds that are going to be available because people will be moved to Hope Place. Families will be moved to Hope Place. And they have talked with the Catholic Charities as well as Halifax, and their proposal was to provide a first step, exactly the same philosophy, but do it a pre-first step to keep the people, bring the people there in a holding pattern until first step is done, which we don't know when it's going to be done. Their main thing that they were asking is if this occurred, would the county be supportive of that money that is promised to Daytona to go to that temporarily while we're waiting for the other one. So our obligation is to Daytona. So this decision has to be made between Daytona and First Step. They have to agree on it. But I do think that that's another option because it's not about location, it's about the people. And until this First Step is ready to go, if we could have a pre-First Step and still provide them the services that First Step, I think it's a good idea. So I'm just throwing that in. But it would be up to Daytona. Our monies and everything are promised to Daytona.
If you let me comment.
Yes.
Billy and I talked about this. I believe that our relationships with Daytona Beach, I think what they're doing now is healthy. They're trying to figure out how they're going to build their facility. And the only way it's going to work is if they can all figure out what makes sense. What Billy and I talked about, which is not unreasonable, is if, my understanding is HUM may present to the First Step Board. If the First Step Board goes to the city and says that they would like to do this, and the city wants to do it, okay, then I would think that our council would be open if they come in here and ask us, because what Billy's talking about is not us giving any additional money, but of the $400,000 that you pledge per year for 5 years, if they wanted to use, they'd have to use their money too. If they wanted to use their money, could they come to us and ask us, okay? And I think that obviously the council would be open to hearing their proposal, but that proposal would have to come from the city.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure that there's agreement on using that facility. And I think that at this point, I think everybody would prefer that we just stay where we're at. We've provided funds. We've provided lots of funds for all these facilities, if you add them all up. But I'd say we cross that bridge when we come to it, if they want to ask us.
Yeah.
But our relationships with the city.
Exactly.
And, I don't know if that's going to happen. I think there's some apprehension by the city of doing that interim step.
Yeah.
And I think we'd always be open to hearing from the city if they wanted to talk to us about how they were going to use the existing money that we put out there. But I say we sort of cross that bridge if we come to it.
Yeah, as a representative for the citizens, I do get phone calls saying what's happening with it, why isn't it happening? We've still got the people out on the streets, and they're going to be there for another year at least. And I just wanted to throw that out, that was public. It was in the newspaper, so that would have to be between Daytona and them. But I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, then I have the one other thing I'd like to do. We've talked about Hard Rock, and I am getting calls galore and questions about an update. Are we going to make the deadline and whatever? I want to know personally, I saw the article in the paper today that Dustin had written, and he referred to a January 25th email that, staff had, or that was passed around. I look back through my emails and I didn't receive anything. And and I'm not saying anything but there is a difference between truth and honesty. Truth is, yes, there's nothing on this piece of property. Honesty is, yes, there's nothing on this piece of property, but we're planning on building a strip joint. That's the honesty. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm getting all the information. I'm not saying that there's going to be a strip joint. I'm just using truth and honesty. I feel like sometimes I'm not getting all the information again, and I want to make sure that we are getting the information that we need. And I don't want to read about it in the newspaper.
I think that this should be no different to me than any project that's put out there for anyone that's doing, of all the hundreds and thousands of projects that are carried on throughout this county. It would be up until something happens. I mean, we're not involved in the day-to-day process. We're not involved in the construction. We're involved in making a decision to allow the action to take place. So to worry or be concerned that something may or may not happen is kind of like, what are you going to do? Creating thoughts of what ifs and ands and mights. Right. Let's worry about I think we should be focused on let it go. And it's not up to us to keep up with the day-to-day process of a construction project, I don't think. That's not our function. If you disagree, that's fine, if you think we should. I received comments from people about the Hard Rock, but that's under Daytona's jurisdiction as far as code and building and permitting and approval. That's up to Daytona Beach. It's not up to the county. In my scope of the way I look at it, if something happens that they don't meet the deadline that we have given, then we have something to deal with. Up until that time, all we can say is we understand that work is going on and we hope that they meet their deadlines. So
just to clarify,
the short answer is I'm not concerned about it until we need to address an issue of the Hard Rock.
Just to clarify, we've never received any information from them. Well, I saw the thing in the paper, that didn't come to us. I don't listen to anybody but the people that are the attorney and Mr. Abbas, okay, in terms of where they're at. I have no reason to believe at all that they are not going to supply the certification which they are required to do. I'm waiting for it any day.
That was what I wanted on record.
And that's the only information that I have, that you have, is that I've never seen anything from them that said they weren't going to make it, except for the first time when you extended the deadline. Since that time, they've given us every indication that we find. Their attorney has we talked to them at one time about just making sure that they understood what the certification required, and they explained to us where they were in construction, and we're waiting for that certification. I'm supposed to get it any day, and once we do, then there's a process we go through. Dan, you want to explain what we have to do when I get the letter?
I think you explained it in an email. We all received that.
And then once I get that certification and we verify it, then what I'll be doing, I'll be forwarding to the council, just so you know. And when I forward that, I will give you a date that we will be closing the beach. So you'll get both of those together.
Does that help everybody? Okay. Anything else, Ms. Wheeler? Ms. Cusack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no additional comments today.
Ms. Denny's?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. First of all, attended Representative Volusia County at the FAA National Aerospace Conference in Washington, D.C. was an amazing networking. It really was a networking event, and again, I think it was very strategic for Volusia to even be there and to hear some of the things. There's a new language up there too. You know, every industry has their own acronyms and their own language. When we hear LEO, we think of law enforcement officer, right? Not up there, low Earth orbit. So
drones.
No, unmanned aerial vehicles. You do not use the word drone. You don't say that either. They're unmanned area. They're UAVs or UAS with a satellite. So learning this new language, there's another acronym. We all know what an OREO is, right? Unless you're there at a commercial aerospace conference, and it's an organic exposure to orbital stresses. It's a whole new language, and an armadillo is what I have in my field that tears it up that I'd like to, anyway. In the back of my field, that's an armadillo. We all know what they do. But up there at a commercial aerospace conference, an armadillo is an altitude-related maneuvers and debris instrument in low orbit. That's an armadillo. So half the time you're Googling saying, okay, and that means, and you're connecting. But it's very good. I will tell you for Florida, for Volusia County, for the second and third tier supply chain markets that's connected to the aviation and aerospace, everything from, we're thinking launches, forget the big rockets, start thinking satellites. The word is CubeSats, the Cube satellites. And interestingly enough, when I came back, I'm thinking, well, okay, there's going to come a time when our grandchildren will be bringing home, asking you, can you help me with my science project? And it will be a satellite in a box. Can you help me put this together? Well, that's not for our grandchildren. It's happening now because at one of the lunches there with this was in Tallahassee at Florida Space Day, with the Air Force and NASA. There was a table in the back of the room there where we were invited to the lunch there, and there was a group of students, and guess what they were putting together? Their Cube satellite that will go up, just like back in the day, you could get a car from Ford magazine, from Sears Roebuck, right? The kit back in the day. Now think satellites. We went from, the Flintstones to the Jetsons on steroids here overnight. But for Volusia County, in economic development, the second and third tier supply chain, we need to get ready because it's moving, and there's corporations and players that we've never even heard of, even from last year. There's new players at the table, amazing industry. So it was an honor to represent you there. And by the way, we're the only country to have a car in space and put 50,000 miles on it the first time out. Anyway.
Thanks to Elon.
Yeah, big time, thanks to Elon.
Space junk.
So that's been a very busy 2 weeks for that. But the last thing I want to discuss is I want to thank staff. I actually got a call on the way in from Bill Rowe at Ocean Properties down in Bethune Beach. George, we talked about, he called me on the way in this morning because he knew there was a council meeting today. At the last council meeting, staff, I brought up the concern with Bethune Beach property owners. There's 18 or 19 of them that wanted to use their own money to re-nourish the beach down there, but couldn't get the permits from the DEP, the EPA. They were just caught in that bureaucratic quagmire. Well, in meeting with them, we found out that under an EFO, when the governor proclaims an emergency final order, that allows city and county governments to issue permits and override the state. So they asked us if we would step in and intervene, and could we do that? Well, not only did I ask, it's already been done. Was it Clay Irvin that took his guys out there, George?
Yes.
Clay, was it you?
It was Clay and our environmental staff, and actually to clarify, what we did is we went ahead and helped each of the individuals fill out the proper DEP permit, and we broke it out in a way that allowed it to come on a much easier process. So that was the tack that we took to get it done in a quick manner, and I want to thank Clay and his staff that went out there, and they got the DEP as well to come down, and we knocked it all out in one session out there on the beach. So it was.
I also want to thank Jamie and the law department for trying to make sure that this all met all of our conditions under the take permit. And one other thing, Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear when I'm not quoted wrong, I said I would send you something saying when we're going to close the beach. I meant to say close the beach, that section to beach driving, not close the beach, close that section to beach driving.
I want to just clarify this because this is a big thing, George, because this was done on site with the residents. They walked them through that bureaucratic nightmare, 18 or 19 of them.
It worked out good.
And to achievement. But going forward, and I've been reading this what an actual emergency final order is when we have a hurricane. It gives emergency authorization for repairs, replacement, restoration, and certain other measures made necessary by hurricane. This one was Hurricane Irma. That's based upon a serious threat to public health, safety, and welfare posed by the hurricane. And it goes on to list the different things that fall under that particular purview that gives us the ability to be the administration bureaucratic arm. Going forward, Mr. Manager, I would like you to bring something back to this council that we don't have to wait till we have 7 months of emergency final orders for our citizens who want to use their own money to replace and re-nourish the damage that's been done, that we can expedite this process and not be caught up in this, because this worked wonderfully. What we did,
I think we can base it on what we did in our experience, and I do think we stretched the limits, and we got to watch that we don't violate the law, and we don't have problems with our take permit. I'm very pleased. The staff's really went out of their way to try and make it work for those citizens, and I think it's a template for the future.
and what he did ask, though, is if we could expand it to the walkovers, that they still need to get permits. I mean, there are walkovers down there, and of course the whole beach, they got a 2-foot, 4-foot, 6-foot drop off. They just want a temporary permit. They don't want to, they want to stay within the rules. They want to stay within the permitting regulations. They've hired consultants and professionals to do this, but they still need help getting those permits to finish those walkway accesses. They're the private ones, not ours. The private ones with their own money, they just need the permits to do that. We need to expedite that too, because according still to this EFO, we can do it as long as it's completed by 10/4/18. They have until October 4th of 2018 to work with
I think it worked great. I think it sets up a template for the future. But I also think there's a difference when you're trying to help people help themselves. There's a big difference here. This wasn't like, get the government in to do, it was like, hey, we'd really like to do this. It's our private property. Can you help us? I'm very pleased with what we did, and we had a stretch to make it work so we don't violate something and get in trouble. But I'm real pleased that I think between law and our staff and Clay and them, they did a great job.
Thank you, Clay. That really was an amazing feat within 2 weeks. But can we expand that to add the
We're gonna look.
walkovers?
We'll see what we can do.
We need to expand that.
We'll see what they'll allow us to do.
They just want permits.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Lowry.
Low Earth orbit. I must follow that up with Scotty too to beam up. All right. Anyway, I want to thank staff for helping me. Pat and I think had the same grumpy old man disease of some kind, but yeah. But anyway, appreciate being able to come in by phone call, and also over my part of the county, I've been some concern about the evac and so forth, and I've been meeting with staff and so forth, and been very encouraged. I think things were handled well. Flu epidemic going around has strained a lot of that, but it's kind of like if you had a bunch of brush fires at one time, you wouldn't have your firehouses manned like you'd like. So, but I think a good job's been done there, and I know those people worked hard, and I appreciate the staff and those out there on evac that have done just a tremendous job. And I just want to assure everybody that I feel like everything was done well. We were stretched at times, but appreciate all the work that went in there and the help in researching that, finding that, especially with George Rechtenwald. Thanks so much for your help on that, sir. That's all I have.
Thank you. I was not going to say very much, and I still am not. I was asked to make a comment about Government 101 event that Ms. Post had. I'm just going to take the higher road on that, and I'm not going to be critical of it. I do think that possibly if you had reached out to maybe for part of it on getting bills through the state, we have people here with 18 years of legislative experience that could have attended to add something to that. So when we do things, if we look to reach out to work within our team, you have Ms. Cusack with 8 years and Mr. Patterson with 10 in the state. And if anyone knows what's involved in getting a bill through or not, I think that would be something that would have helped to have had that. And I think this council would have been certainly willing to have helped and worked with you on something like that rather than you having to do it on your own. As far as does anyone like to have anything placed on an agenda? There's a process for that here, and each meeting at this time, anyone who would like to see about something getting placed on an agenda, bring it up. And I think the policy has been, correct me in the past, if you get support from 4 people to bring up an item to be put on an agenda, you can have it. If you don't get a second, I mean, I'm sure Ms. Cusack can say she's been turned down her bills, never got on even to heard in committee. And it's kind of the same process here. If you want something put on an agenda or like it, and the consensus is by 4 people up here agree to it, we can put them on there for future discussion. So I never felt that I was not favoring are being critical of you. I'm not going to be critical of you. I attribute a lot of maybe the learning curve that you have to be going through. We're like a board for a corporation. And you don't need to hear a lecture from me on that. And I'm not going to lecture anybody except we got to work together.
Yes.
And if we can't work together, it's a whole lot easier for us to work together. We see what accomplishments we've made working with the cities and working with social and services and other entities, how much easier it is to help each other along to get things done. And sometimes when you have one of 7 or one of 435 or one of 120, you don't always get your way. And that's going to happen. When you're an entrepreneur and you have a single proprietorship, you can do what you want to do with the restraints from outside. I had a business, I had to answer to lots of different things. When I had to fight and argue with Ron Rice over doing something, I sometimes had to listen and try to convince him why I needed to do something or whatever it may be. So I don't think anyone up here, I'll speak for myself. I have nothing against what you're doing. I just think that you can reach to us for help because you haven't served on a city board. You haven't served as an elected office before. It's a learning curve. You can ask any of us up here. It's a learning curve for me to go from 16 years of municipal service to county service. And it would be another leap to go to another county because all things don't work the same. But if we can agree to work together, let's try to do that. And if you have an item, as I mentioned, bring it up in closing comments. If you'd like to see if the rest of us would like to have something put on an agenda for discussion. This falls right back to what I stressed, you and I talked about prior to the election that we both would like, and that would be a workshop, you don't like my hairstyle, you don't like whatever it may be about anybody. You don't like the way the meetings are done, you don't like this, you don't feel this, I don't feel this. That's the time to do, is to have a meeting where we can just sit and talk without an agenda, just sit and talk and grow in understanding each other. So I'm not going to get into anything. I've never felt like that I have shortchanged you or done anything against you for you that I wouldn't do for anyone else that's up here. I think I've been fair with each of us. I don't hold things against it. I want to move on. Pastor service Sunday was about love and working together, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to reach out, and the thing is, that really makes it difficult. We cannot talk to each other about any issues that may come up. As such, we avoid each other even at a social event. I was at an event last night where Billy was. Didn't even speak to her. She probably goes, well, you didn't even speak to me last night. Sometimes you just don't do that. So let's all try to get along and work together. So with that being said, we've all been getting comments about people with damaged walkovers. I didn't realize, I knew it was more than 18 or 15. We have 126 walkovers in the county. 126. And to have only 11 that are not operable right now. And I try to get people to be patient. And if you're out there listening, and if you don't do anything but Dustin, print this, we're working on getting those walkovers finished as fast as we can. And so I appreciate what they're doing on that respect. Policy, Purple Heart. Did you want to make one more comment?
I did, since you brought that up. I feel it's probably a good idea that I respond.
Okay.
I didn't bring up anything about the comments made as well because I didn't want to be petty, but I think it's somewhat silly to, I've heard various comments made that I'm not qualified to hold a Government 101 meeting for my constituents and for the public because I've only been on the county council for a little over a year. I find that humorous, seeing as how the chambers have felt confident in having me represent them in that way, and that law enforcement has been confident in having me represent them in that way, and that I was elected to this position to represent my constituents and to help them and to advocate. And I find even more interesting that I'm not even sure that you really understand what that meeting was because of those comments. You know, the paper writes what they want to write, very obviously. I don't even read the paper anymore. But perhaps, you know, I think it is very important that we do have workshops, because I think that people are listening to outside opinions instead of actually what is actually correct. But let me just explain the reason that I held the meeting, and then the purpose of the meeting. The reason I held the meeting so quickly was because this Constitutional Review Commission was having public meetings yesterday and today in our region, and I felt that it was important. And I was asked by many, many people, and I know that there are city and county commissioners and council people from around the state who have all been working last minute to get everybody and their mother to be involved in that process, because the state constitution is only revised every 20 years. So in joining everybody and their mother from around the state, and me feeling that it's very important for the people in my area and the surrounding areas to know about it and to be involved in it, that was the reason for the last minute scheduling of that meeting. You know, certainly it would have been better to do with much more notice, but I felt that even if 10 people showed up or 50 people showed up, it was worth it in getting the word out. But let me tell you what the actual meeting was about. I called it Government 101 because it was literally Government 101. It was me explaining three things. It was me explaining how our county and our city council meetings actually work, and public participation, because I think a lot of times we get people in here who don't understand the process. And I know I've talked with the county manager about changing our form a little bit, so that people actually understand when they come in that they have 3 minutes, that's it, and there's no discussion. And you know, I feel badly when people come in and when they're done after the 3 minutes and they look around and they're like, okay, is my issue going to be dealt with? Is it going to be talked about in the meeting? And they sort of leave very confused. And so one of the things was talking about how the general meetings are run and how the public can be involved in those meetings. The next thing was how committees are formed in Tallahassee, and who your state representatives are, and how you can be involved in that process. And then talking about the upcoming meeting with the Constitutional Revision Commission. That's not rocket science. And those, I don't need to have been on the council for 20 years to have a meeting with my constituents to ensure that they're aware of that stuff. And I got really good feedback from people in trying to do that. And I think, and I'll address as well, I think someone made a comment that it was a PR stunt, but this was my way of trying to educate my constituents and to get them to understand the process so that they can be more involved. I think it's very important that the public's involved in government. And, when anyone else holds a meeting in their district, I don't consider it a PR stunt. I consider it a meeting with the constituents. So, again, didn't really feel the need to bring all this up before, but since you did bring it up, I just wanted to address all of that. And again, I think it would be a great idea if people stopped listening to opinions outside of the dais, and that we actually had a workshop to discuss general matters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I made a statement sometime back about library at City Island. Only should we look at it, and I said, yes, we should look at everything. And our libraries have evolved. I mentioned this at several meetings. Master gardeners, adult programs, free movies, computer skill, free movies, blood drive, classical guitarist, folk singer, Wild West Jamboree, kids can meet the sheriff, adult knitting, relieve joint and muscle pain with gig gong, Zumba classes, local music person, Beauty and the Beast movie, Cowboy Bill performance, playwright to True Grit, Valentine Roundup, Wild West Bonanza, the three Mrs. Flaglers, retired teachers to discuss Roosevelt's, Bobby Meeks to sing, celebrate cowboy life, Wild West Jamboree, Jim Sawgrass, Native American culture, Western programs. These are all just events that are occurring throughout our library system. Our libraries are community centers. I just wonder going forward if we need to look at what we're going to do with our libraries to be more. There's one or two dealing with computer information and education, which is paramount for especially some of the people, aging people, that want to learn how to communicate so they can know they can go online and listen and watch the council meeting, so they can know that they can go online and learn how to be involved in a board and what is required. Maybe they don't know how to get on online. So learn how birds on the Indian River Lagoon. Get in touch with personal technology. Now that's kind of a pretty good one. And then that try gig gong. I was going to Google that one, but I thought there's no telling what's a gig gong? Does anybody know? Nobody knows what a gig gong is? Anyway. I don't have a clue. That's what it sounds like. But anyway, I just think our libraries are so much more than a place to check out books, that we need to, let people, we are trying to let them know. I get probably a half a dozen every day from Pat Kuhn. I mean, I look at them, and some of them I laugh because of what's there, especially that gig gong thing. Anyway, at some point in time, if we could have an opportunity during a workshop or at some point to thoroughly understand our library system and what we need to do, whether with the regional libraries or whether they're local libraries, and where we can really make a difference with them. That's all I want to do. At some point, I'll bring it up.
Mr. Chair, if the council, I've had 2 requests from people. This one today about having something. I actually would welcome that. I think you would appreciate why previous councils went to this regional system and why you took on the libraries, because they were non-functional in the old days with those little ones, and why we gravitated to big ones. And you're looking at why they did that, and it's a different system. I will tell you one other thing that it doesn't show up on that list, but we all that work on this know. The library system, especially in the downturn, it's true today, but especially in the downturn, did something for people that you don't think about, and that is when people lose their job, a lot of times they have to go somewhere, and they don't have money, and they're trying to put their lives back on track. I can tell you countless people that go to the library to look for jobs. They go there, it's like going to an office. They got support there that'll help them. They got computers there, and they don't feel quite as isolated. And that served an enormous resource for people that really needed it at the time. That happens all the time, but during the downturn, you wouldn't believe how many people told us, when I'm in trouble, that's where I turn to, is the library. So that is a big deal. I think if you did that, it would be good for the public to hear once again, but I think it would also show, like, you're dealing with issues now for this council, but other councils dealt with issues like the library system. So it'd be good to do that. Also, Miss Denny's has talked to me about this thing on space, that she wanted to do a workshop on all these different elements that are coming together on space and aviation in our community to help us figure out where we're going and what kind of goal we should have. So those are two right off the bat that I know of that I feel pretty comfortable that the council would want to do. So if you would like to do that, if you'd let me know, because I think you should say something in these meetings, then you and I can talk about when we can schedule it.
Okay. All right, with that, we ran a little long on the closing comments, but we still are getting out here on our first full-fledged Tuesday meeting with everybody here at 11:40. Meeting adjourned. Tuesday's not a bad day.